We have gotten our announcement, the announcement of the details surrounding patch 10.2, which now also has a name, Guardians of the Dream. I'm sure it will come as a shock to many of you that this patch will be centered around the Emerald Dream. Oh, wow, who could have guessed it based on where the story was heading with Farak and his hard-on for the new 3 we made from the seed in Shadowlands? Well, that's where we are going. The next patch will bring us to a new zone within the Emerald Dream. They were discussing the new zone being part destroyed, charred and inflamed because of Farak, and then the other part still its green, lush, verdant self of the Emerald Dream. However, what's also more cool is to talk about the features coming in 10.2. Feature number 1 is something that was announced just basically a day before the announcement of this patch, which was a legendary. In the preview announcement for this patch, it was mentioned that there was going to be a new legendary coming in patch 10.2. Now, because this was announced before the patch even came out, people started thinking, well, they wouldn't announce this if it was just for a single spec or for a single class like we have gotten now for the Evoker legendary, right? It might be perhaps something player wide, something like a new cloak like we've had before, or a new ring or a new trinket for all of the players to work towards. Instead, we have gotten somewhere in between, because no, it's not a legendary for a single spec or a legendary for a single class, but at the same time, it's also not a legendary for everyone, because the legendary in question is going to be a two-handed strength weapon, which will come very likely, looking at the design and the concept art of the weapon itself being wielded by Farak, likely from the raid, or will have something to do with the raid. And being a two-handed strength weapon is going to be for Fury and Arms Warriors, is going to be for Blood and Unholy Death Knight, with Frost being completely cucked out of this weapon, as well as Retribution Paladin. So those will be the playable specs that will be able to get this legendary weapon. Talking about Farak and talking about coming from the raid, here's the other very surprising bit of news for this patch. The last boss of the new raid is going to be Farak. What a surprise as well. The raid will be called Amirdrassil, the Dream's Hope. Now, I'm a little bit off on the nomenclature of this raid, how it will be shortened, maybe ATDH, or maybe only TDH as the name for the raid. Either way, this raid will be very similar to the zone we will be playing into, because half of the raid, one wing of the raid, will be destroyed by Farak. It will be all fire mobs and fire stuff, and then the other wing will still be untouched, with the green color palette familiar to the Emerald Dream, and then in the end you will be fighting Farak as the last boss. Another bit that is announced with this reveal of 10.2 is of course the new season, which will include the new Mythic Plus season. This one, being a new season, will have new dungeons to be part of the dungeon pool. And we have some surprises compared to what we were expecting or what was hinted by Blizzard at first. First of all, we are staying with 8 dungeons for the season. It has happened before that whenever the Mega Dungeon was being introduced as 2 different dungeons in the Mythic Plus pool, we extended the pool of dungeons in the season from 8 to 10. Now we still stay with 8. What is also more surprising is that while we were expecting at least a couple, basically the best of, the current Dragonflight dungeons to make it in the next season, we actually get something completely different, because we will have no Dragonflight dungeons in the next season as part of the Mythic Plus pool, but all old dungeons being reworked and updated to Mythic Plus. The dungeons in question are 2 from Legion, Darkheart, Thicket and Blackrook Hold, 2 from BFA, Waycrest Manor and Ataldazar, 1 from Worlds of Draenor, the Everbloom, and lastly, out of nowhere, 1 from Cataclysm, Throne of the Tides. Now, I don't want to brag. However, we did have a video asking ourselves this, asking which dungeons would we have wanted to see part of the next dungeon pool, and a certain someone, that someone being myself, put Dragonheart, Ticket, and Atadazar in the S tier, as well as Waycrest Manor and Blackrook Hold in the A tier. So amongst my dungeons of choice, 4 of them I got correctly out of 6. The other 2 were Everbloom, which was in the C tier as an okay dungeon. The only one, which I'm assuming many players didn't even consider, and neither did I, as I put it at the very bottom in the F tier, is Throne of the Tides. Very weird choice. Throne of the Tides is a very linear, you are basically stuck in a single corridor without any room whatsoever for creating your own route or for pulling multiple mobs. In alternative ways, in different or creative ways, you only have a big circle, a big plaza in the middle of the dungeon, the rest is just corridors and gauntlets, so it doesn't really make for a very nice Mythic Plus dungeon. So it's surprising that they went to choose Throne of the Tides as their choice for this update for 10.2. Still interesting that we get completely new dungeons for the next season. I'm a bit thrown off by the fact that at the end of the day 4 out of 6 were still seen in Mythic Plus in previous expansions, because 2 are from Legion and 2 are from BFA, so we already had them in Mythic Plus. It would have been perhaps cooler to see dungeons from TBC, from Cataclysm, from Warlords, from Mists, right? Dungeons who never saw the light as a Mythic Plus dungeon, to see how they would become if updated to be a Mythic Plus dungeon. Besides these major features being announced, though, they were quite light on the reveals. We had the usual talk like, yes, we get a new faction in the new zone, which you'll be able to gain renown with. That's also kind of a given. We have also dragon riding updates with new races, mounts, and customizations for the dragons. That's also somewhat of a given the expansion we are in. And an addition, class updates. We were already aware that 10.2 was going to be the home of the rogue class for the update. However, we are also getting Demon Hunter class talent updates. This is perhaps somewhat surprising, as at the moment, especially Vengeance Demon Hunter has had quite a good state in the game as far as their talent system works. Perhaps there is a bit more of a debate for the Demon Hunter DPS version, Havoc, and the constant fight between players who are happy using and playing around momentum as a DPS tool, and players who don't like having a movement ability, especially a somewhat buggy and messy when having to fight certain mobs in certain environments, and having to use that as a DPS tool, not liking it too much. Maybe that's what the class talent update is going to be addressing for Demon Hunters. Not much else is being said about the content itself in the new zone. They point out there are going to be some community-wide events in the Emerald Dream where you can get some seeds, and then you can find some empty patches of unearthed ground in the zone, which you can activate with your seed, and you will be essentially starting an event where you have to defeat waves of mobs, and the more you defeat them, the more you can keep empowering this new seed you planted, and if you manage to make it bloom within 5 minutes, you can get a bunch of rewards. This might be all nice and cool in the explanation, but what matters is what we talked about in this video right here. The amount of things you get to do in the open world, and whether or not they will give you any character power, any player power, any reason for you to go in the open world on a daily or semi-daily basis for you to chase a particular good power increase for your character. As long as this new feature, this new mechanic will give you nothing but toys or pets or transmog pieces, it won't really draw the attention of the players, much like we have seen in this patch, in the previous patch, and for the entirety of Shadowlands. So for now, besides the basic announcement with all of these features, not much else has been added, like for example, when is the patch being released? that would be a pretty good start in terms of info. We still don't know. We know, of course, it comes in autumn, and we know it will likely come the week before or the week after BlizzCon. So we are talking about anywhere from the 1st to the 7th of November, which also means more or less a couple of months. As the question for when will this drop on the PTR, so we can actually start to see a few more cool things, maybe perhaps even the tier sets, the new class sets being released in this patch. That is likely going to be a closer answer. Somewhere between a week from now, we should start to have this patch on the PTR as well. However, for today, this is all we have as far as news about this patch are concerned. So I'm going to leave you with your first impressions about this patch for yourself. If you want, you might as well share them down in the comments. And besides this, it's time to leave, as I had to delay the making of this video very late. So I still have a whole bunch of things to get done with before I start relaxing and chilling down in my man cave. So thanks, of course, as usual. We are starting by thanking all of the Patreon supporters for the contribution and the help to the growth of the channel, which, as usual, can still be given for free by liking and commenting down below, as well as subscribing to the channel itself. That will still be a good contribution without having to spend 1 cent. Now, with these things out of the way, thank you guys again for watching. See you guys tomorrow, and in the meantime, I'm still quite weirded out about the choice. You know, why Throne of the Tides from Cataclysm? You had my favorite, Grim Battle, right there to pick. Wasted opportunity.